Mira Business FM.
This is the Morning Drive. It's Mira Business FM. Good morning. So, phishing now drives more than 75% of cyber breaches in the United Arab Emirates. And the sad fact is that finance teams are firmly in the crosshairs. Now, as fraud tactics grow even more sophisticated, the risk is shifting from IT to the people approving payments. Almost the human firewall, I suppose, is one phrase that we've seen used. Joining us this morning is Kush Ahuja. He's from the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. Joins me in the studio. Kush, good to meet you.
Likewise. Thank you, Michael.
Very good to have you here. So, look, phishing, 75% of cyber breaches, that's the headline. The strategy, though, has kind of shifted. Hackers are no longer just trying to break the software. They're kind of trying to break the person in some ways. Then I suppose that's like a new priority for finance leaders. It's not just about the IT teams, is it?
Well, you look at it first, when you think of phishing, think of somebody like a con artist who's standing at your doorstep and trying to get your sensitive information in every which way possible.
Sure.
And if you think of it that way, there's four things that arise out of that. That this is a person trying to get into your house, not just your finance team, if you're a corporate. The finance team, however, is very well placed because they go across departments. They are connected across marketing, sales, so on and so forth. So they have a good full picture. You have to remember that when fraud, phishing, some of these things happen, they don't just impact any one of these departments. They impact the business, its ability to make profit, the liabilities that arise. The CFO or the finance team are actually very well placed to look into some of these pieces, also because it impacts a lot of their areas, including legal, including compliance, including reporting, including risk management. And which is why finance teams, they are very well placed to be looking into all of this. It's not just an IT piece. It's actually become organizational in nature.
There certainly has been a shift, hasn't there? So 3/4 of cyber breaches start with a simple phishing attempt, that kind of dangling the bait. We often think of hackers as kind of tech wizards. That's kind of the image, isn't it? But there's an element of kind of psychology, almost master psychology in this. Why is it that the finance team has become like a VIP target for attacks that are socially engineered?
So, Michael, it's changed. Last year, ACCA conducted a huge piece of research into combating fraud in a perfect storm. And when we look at earlier, there used to be cybercrime, there was governance gaps, and then came in AI.
Gotcha.
Right? And AI used to move separately in order to create that deception. And this is no longer working in silos that, hey, I'm looking at cybercrime and the next person is looking at governance gaps and the next person is leveraging AI as a technology. This has become kind of an industrialized endeavor, combining all three, which attacks the organization as a whole. And it is clear that AI is actually putting all the scale and speed into it, while the measures in order to prevent it are always catching up because it's so innovative. You have to remember that with every attempt that is made to perpetrate fraud using AI, the systems are continuously getting smarter, whether successful or unsuccessful, but the next time they will be better.
I want to come back and talk to you about AI use in fraud in a minute, because I mean we've gone so past the era of those badly spelled emails from princes that we're kind of used to. Phishing today is hyper-personalised. It references real trade licenses, for example, very often, or diesel price fluctuations, whatever it is. Right now, it's using we've seen a lot more recently because of current tensions in the region. The idea that you need to create a false sense of urgency, heightened expectation for finance teams. I want to ask you this. What does a modern fraud attempt look like in a UAE business today? And how is it different from what finance teams dealt with, say, 3 years ago, 5 years ago?
So, Tim, when you look at UAE, this is not limited by geography as longer any such, because the perpetrators and the targets could be sitting in any part of the world. UAE is obviously one of the most global countries, Dubai specifically, where we sit. And we've seen a significant surge. When you look at 5 to 6 years ago, you have seen a significant surge in high precision targets.
Right.
Right? So somebody would be looking at a CEO, somebody would be looking at a decision maker. And this has gone beyond far than what you just mentioned earlier, generic spam. This is no longer just spam.
Yeah.
It is now deeply personalized. People will study you and fraud will happen, supplier impersonation, things like these are going to start happening. And these are particularly devastating because what they're exploiting is trust. They're just not exploiting only systems. And the integration of voice, or what we call as AI-assisted phishing, where somebody impersonates your voice, has made these deceptions so difficult to detect just by the naked ear. Our research that I was referring to at the beginning actually confirms that cyber-enabled deception is now the most prevalent form of fraud that is taking place. And it's not just because of the technology. It's because the financial risk and the reputational damage that comes from these is absolutely immense. And again, remember that with each attempt, these systems continue to better themselves. Now, this is very different from what used to happen 5 years ago.
No, it's hugely different. Scams like AI voice generation, much more common than they were. Supplier impersonation. I mean, the simple fact is we're all now, I think pretty much all of us, 99% of us, in some way or another, are on social media. We leave a digital footprint. There are little clues that people can pick up on, aren't there?
Very true.
Yeah. Finance teams are like the last line of defense before payments are authorized. What are the most common control failures being exploited, Kush?
Tim, that's a good question because I'll take a slightly different view on that one. I think finance teams are actually the first line of defense and not the last.
Okay, fine.
And the most common control failures exploited are no longer bugs in the system, or they're actually about how companies are managing trust, how companies are managing data, and how companies are managing their own culture. Okay. So people have gotten a lot more sophisticated. And fraud is not just happening because there's a failure of control in one place. It is happening because there's a larger cultural problem within organizations than an occasional human error that could take place that somebody's taken advantage of. So as finance professionals, we look at a fraud triangle. The fraud triangle is that you have the opportunity, you have the motive, and you are a dishonest person. Because somebody's got to really think that I want to commit fraud. It just doesn't happen by accident. Now, if these three are present, then you've got issues brewing in the organization because you've left out, there's a dishonest person on board. He's got a motivation and you've provided the opportunity. Now, in our research, we came across that 62% of the finance professionals, they say that they would like more training on how to detect fraud. But at the same time, only 57% came back saying that the companies are actually going out and proactively looking for, is there fraud taking place? And, I might have alluded to this a bit earlier, but it should be observed that it should not be a siloed accountability because we mentioned finance teams. When perpetration happens, it can happen in your purchasing team, it can happen in your sales team, so on and so forth. And finance is in a good place, but what is essentially important is somebody to look at the bigger picture so that there's no one person just looking at fraud prevention in an organization, but rather it's built into the culture itself.
Which makes sense, doesn't it? That shares the risk. What if you have the person in charge who perhaps isn't the most honest person in an organization? There's another doomsday scenario. Where do failures typically happen? Is it approval processes? Is it verification? Is it internal communication? Is it a mix?
It's quite a mix. And, I talked about combating fraud in a perfect storm, what we did last year in November. And one of the key findings that came up was that business leaders need to look at fraud from a big picture perspective. It can no longer be looked at, hey, is this person doing something or is that person doing something? So to answer your question, all three, failures in approval processes, failures in verification steps, and failures in what I call as shared accountabilities or siloed accountability, so internal communication. It's important. For instance, a fear of finding out the real thing, or what we call as FOFO,
Okay.
is very real because people will avoid calling out red flags unless there is a trust in the system that something is going to be done about it and I'm not the one who is going to be put on the line because I found something out.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So accountability is part of the issue, isn't
Oh,
it?
yes.
In some
It's the culture, Tim, like we talked.
Yeah. Yeah. For ages, cybersecurity has been kind of an IT problem, hasn't it? That's where it kind of sat.
Yeah.
Right? But if a breach happens because, let's say, your accountant clicked a link or a fake invoice got approved or something, that's now a finance governance issue, isn't it, rather than a technical issue? And that's how it needs to be viewed, I guess.
Tim, again, with the size and scale of operations today, the fact that somebody would click on an unverified link can happen anywhere in the organization. It just does not need to target the finance teams because systems are all integrated.
Right.
So you could very well send this out to anyone at all and not just the finance team. But yes, the implications are very well financial. So that is where the finance teams actually come in because they are the ones who have views of what is happening to financial data, what is happening to risk, what is happening to reporting, what's the liabilities that can get created out of it. So while you may have an IT vertical, but all of these verticals need to talk to each other because today the spammers are not going to send out a spam only to the finance team. They can send it out to anyone.
It's a numbers game, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. ACCA, the Association of Certified Chartered Accountants, has been evolving professional standards for, well, it's an ongoing process, the ethical frameworks as well. How does training a finance professional in 2026, given everything we've discussed so far, how does it differ from? It seems amazing to say 2016 was a decade ago, but let's go back a decade.
Yeah.
To there.
Look, I believe that whatever you learn when you're going through a qualification should be relevant when you finish it. And ACCA is constantly updating its education standards, professional standards, ethical frameworks to make sure that what our members are getting is the most up-to-date and relevant qualifications. There are research-driven syllabus reviews happening. We incorporate emerging technologies like AI and data analytics. We ensure that people know about sustainability reporting and whatever other evolving global standards coming in around accounting. Now, it just doesn't end there. What we are also looking at is that the people who have already qualified, they also still need to be at the cutting edge in order to be able to deliver. So we've got something called continuing professional education or continuing professional development, which all of our members need to go through on an annual basis. Next year, we are introducing a major update, what we call our innovation in learning and assessment. And the ACCA qualification is actually getting redesigned in order to look at future-proof skills, incorporation of AI, technology, sustainability, and employability. Now, this updated structure is going to feature new interactive learning experiences. It's going to enhance practical skill sets and application, and a simplified pathway on how to go through the qualification. Pardon me. This redesign ensures that the qualification remains relevant for a profession which is ever evolving and with support for existing students as they go through it.
Can we take an example? You talked about AI a number of times for obvious reasons. And AI is being used to draft these perfect kind of error-free phishing emails. It's in multiple languages. The approach is really smart from one perspective. How does ACCA training the next generation of accountants, how does it work when it comes to spotting AI-generated deception when it is so 100% authentic to so many eyes,
I think that fraud professionals, Tim, overall are equipped to manage fraud through a combination of stuff. It's not just pinpointing what is AI generated. They've got the technical accounting knowledge. They have exposure to forensic accounting techniques. They have got the professional skepticism because that is built into how they are trained through the qualification. And they also develop certain key skills like analyzing financial data, assessing risk, looking at how organizations are managed, what is the management framework. They also understand things like regulatory compliance, anti-money laundering, and they have a touch of being able to leverage digital tools themselves like Python, SQL, being able to see where there are anomalies in data in order to find out if fraud has happened or if there's something going wrong. So it's not about looking at a specific instance, but about being systemic about it in the nature that, is this looking a little off track? Do I need to investigate this a little further? This data doesn't seem right to me. I need to look further into it. And that is where professional skepticism and all of those pieces come in, because when you look at the larger picture, you can drill down into where the issues are.
You see, it's hard that, because if I had an email the other day from my phone telecoms provider, and it was, your bill is due. So I thought, oh, fine. So I looked at the bill and I thought, I don't recognize that number, but it was clearly a really well-made AI-generated scam. At least I think it was, because I don't have any of the numbers. So I didn't click anything. I went to my bank account where it's all set up, and I thought, well, I wonder if there is a bill due, and maybe there's a mistake somewhere. There wasn't. So my policy is I just ignore stuff, because I figure if you want your money, you're going to ask me again, and then I'll pay it, and it will work out in the end. But if you're at work, and it's incumbent on you to get stuff done, and there's the pressure of getting things done. You need to have the skills, the kind of the savvy, the mindset, don't you?
Yeah.
In order to manage that fraud and manage the cyber risk as effectively as you can. And I think that's something that I wonder how you encourage that, how you inculcate that, how you teach that to the up and coming generation, if you like.
Tim, that's an excellent point. A lot of people would step onto that path because there's immense pressure. Can I find a shortcut to doing something?
Sure.
Right. And I think this is where it's very important for the culture or the processes or the controls that have been set up in an organization to come into their own. Most of the time when we look at the whole business, it is necessary to strengthen controls. And a lot of people look at controls as if it's something draconian and it's going to stop us from being efficient, and can I get this done faster? And I think which is where leaders create that culture within the business, that controls should not be seen as restrictive in nature, but as the proper safeguards for conducting checks and balances. They are the things that are actually helping us to enhance efficiency. They're fostering investor confidence. If you don't have the right controls, which investor is going to trust your books or the numbers that you're saying if you want to raise money? These controls are also enabling us to take informed decisions, because they ensure that the data that you have on which you're relying is actually correct. It's trustworthy. And in the end, this actually enhances the prospects for a business if you've got the right processes and controls, not diminish them, because it builds that trust and safety of that environment within which you function.
Kush, we've got about 3 minutes, and I'm wondering if you can offer some simple, practical kind of controls that I guess a smaller finance team can implement, and that is relatively simple to implement quite quickly.
Yeah. I think when it comes to smaller companies, one of the things that they need to look at is that resources are limited.
Yeah.
But still proportional resources should be given in order to reduce finance risk. And what are some of the ways of doing this? You could start with a simple review of within your finance team. So what was the last time that you sat down with your finance team to conduct a fraud risk review? We get so embroiled in everyday stuff that we don't take our time and do this. The second thing that you could do is that what are the things in the business or the environment in which you're functioning that have changed since the last time that you reviewed fraud risk? Has your business changed? Because we all pivot very quickly these days. Have your systems and processes changed? Where might you have introduced weaknesses in the new system? So look at these simple pieces, and I think small businesses can look at segregation of duties so that the same person is not approving and making. The second thing is to look at conducting regular audits, have verification procedures, and specifically on the payments and supplier side, I would say for small businesses to prevent losses.
What's the single most important step we could all take? So our finance teams, I guess it applies to all of us in lots of ways, doesn't it? And it's worth bringing people who aren't finance professionals in, because we all need this. But what's the simple step we could all take now to reduce fraud exposure, do you think? What would you say?
So, Tim, one thing is to take it seriously. And most people take it seriously only when it happens to them.
Unfortunately, yeah.
And before that, it's all about, hey, it's happening to somebody else.
Yeah.
So be vigilant. You've given a very good example earlier of you looking out for that payment on your phone where the provider was asking you. You were vigilant. Now somebody else may have just gone ahead and made that
I just didn't want to pay it, Kush. That's all it was. I just thought, 200 dirhams for what?
Yeah. Secure your data. Secure your data. Spend time to read. Educate yourself. And I would say, get your anti-fraud culture right if you're within a corporate.
That makes a lot of sense. So if you're a certified accountant now, you're kind of a certified cyber defender as well, in disguise with a cape kind of thing.
I'd like to think of it like that.
That's a good way to think about it. I appreciate it. Look, it's been good to talk to you this morning. Kush Ahuja is from the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants joining us here at Mirror Business FM. Kush, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim.
Appreciate your time.